In 1970, English sax-rock six-piece If released their second album in the span of 3 months, simply titled If 2, and from it, the epic opening track, Your City Is Falling. Dramatic sax riff that is basically the theme of the chorus line that we're going to be hearing. And the track is written by the band's co-saxist Dave Quincy, who plays tenor and alto sax as well as flute, dueling it out on those instruments with tenor and soprano saxophonist and flutist Dick Morrissey.
Television smiles with eyes that smile through lies and hate. Half religious mockeries that rob the man who died. Truth to lie to evil ceases to be true. Life will never sacred.
Okay, I love the way that the drumming, particularly the cymbal, was pacing things amid those slippery slide bass lines.
Super dreams and superheroes fall before your eyes. Paper faded images, no substance anymore. Memories are gone, just breathing into life.
I love the exuberance of the vocalist. Yeah, the singing here is done by J.W. Hodkinson, and and in the second part of the verse, we're getting a little bit more interjections from the two saxists. That was quite a roll right there. Yeah, unfortunately the lyrics aren't printed anywhere, but this track was released as a single in the UK. Yeah, and as obviously. I love how each instrumentalist is given a chance to stretch out. Yeah, we get the psychedelic organ passage with some like really supple bass. Yeah, that is keyboardist John Mealing giving us that kind of liquid light organ show right there. Okay, now we have this like really beautiful sax just like ripping right in there and taking things over. Yeah, for a minute I was about to say, well, we've just almost become like an organ trio. For a moment, for about 30 seconds there we were anyway. It's kind of like in Chicago where, despite being a brass rock band, there were moments where they kind of just became like a power trio of Terry Kath, Danny Seraphine, and Peter Cetera. And you know, the ironic thing is that a lot of people cited those three as the most talented, skilled musicians in the band. He's holding some notes there. Yeah, I appreciate the interplay between the sax and the bass. The bass is really standing out to me. It is really holding its own throughout this piece. Okay, the bass is played by Jim Richardson, who had also played with Elton Dean, Keith Tippett, and let's see, in 1981 appeared on the Hoagie Carmichael tribute album in Hoagland, and At some point, joined up with Dick Morrissey again in Morrissey Mullen. Yeah. Okay, Dick Morrissey is the star of this, on saxophone right here, and Jim Richardson bass, and we're getting quite a flurry of like kind of hurricane rhythmic, spinning by Dennis Elliot, the drummer, yeah, who would later play with Tony Ashton and John Lord, Ian Hunter, and would come into the orbit of the Foreigner guys, yeah, ultimately end up one of the founding founding members of that band. God, why didn't he ever do anything like that in Foreigner? The theme is kind of getting poked at in here, but it's kind of being tossed around, and it's not. It's trying to resurface that, trying to fight its way through all this kind of like more free form playing. I love the like master of ceremonies type vibe that he's putting across with these like melodramatic lines, like delivered so rapid fire, like a lot of like really fast syllables. Just children of tomorrow cannot be denied. Life and love are sacred. Multi-storied monuments to mark the place you fall. Neon lights and epitaph to all that is untrue. Memories of golden ages bleeding into life. Life and love are sacred. The city is falling. The city is falling. Just totally anthemic. Yeah, this should have been used in a movie or something. The city is falling. The city is falling. The city is falling. Yeah, just by the title alone, I could tell that that it's irrelevant. It's a track that's as relevant today as it would have been, 50 years ago. Yeah, that was "Your City Is Falling" by If from their second album, If 2, released in December 1973, just 3 months after their first album, If. And this band was formed earlier that year. In an attempt to, I guess, kind of replicate the success, like the recent success of Chicago had inspired like a flurry of brass rock band formations. And this band, of course, distinguished themselves by, they're not technically a brass rock band because they don't have any technical instruments of the brass family. They just have woodwinds, two saxists, two saxist flutists. There's no trumpet or trombone in the lineup, yeah. And they were among about half a dozen bands that sprung up in England that year in response to the U.S. Proliferation of bands like Chicago, Blood, Sweat and Tears, Sons of Champlain, Ten Wheel Drive, The Electric Flag, yeah, all those. And let's hear another track from the album. Shadows and Echo. kind of like a Tower of Power ballad feel from this. Um, and except Tower of Power were just emerging themselves around this time, so it would just be kind of like a coincidence rather than a direct inspiration.
Shadows fall, echoes come, a dark old line, the old night.
His voice is very unique. Yeah, kind of really sharply accented. Not many people I can compare it to offhand. It's maybe an acquired taste for some, but beautiful, kind of like misty, sort of like wintry vibe to this.
Shadows fall over my dreams. Echoes come, echoes fly out the night. Winter, spring, summer, fall.
Okay, I like how the soft background vocals are complementing the more like distinct vocals. I'm no vocal coach, so I don't quite know the technique he's using, but it's like shadows fall. What would that? I don't know what that's. I'm pretty sure there's like a technical name for it. Like he's singing from a certain area, let's say, to get it seems to get that voice.
My life is haunted, it seems. See your face, hear your voice, shadows and echoes. Time has come to make my choice. For me, shadows fall.
Beautiful chord sequence right there, ending up in B. Yeah, a strange place to have landed considering where we were.
Echoes come,
A lot of major sevenths here too, like ending up in C, da, and then hearing that B.
when you walk in, I know those shadows and echoes go.
Okay, now we're heading into something very intense here. Notice that the woodwind that has most dominated this track so far is the flute. Okay, I'm really glad to hear this. Yeah, we've gone into a very different realm, kind of like a post-bop jazz section, fast-paced. And finally, we get to hear some. We get one thing we didn't get in the last track, and that is a showcase for guitarist Terry Smith, who's quite a virtuoso in his own right. Yeah, he has certain moments on these first few albums where he just like really shine. Kind of like the band's best kept secret. You know, for a band that's mostly thought of as a sax or mistakenly at times brass band. Yeah, their guitarist really holds his own. Is every bit the virtuoso in his department. Just kind of like with Chicago, it's like everyone talks about them being a brass rock band, but one of their secret weapon oftentimes was Terry Kath. Yeah. Okay, now he's giving us like these really fluid, clean legato licks. I guess on like a hollow body electric, kind of in the vein of like Grant Green. There are other solos that he's done where he really stretches out kind of in these lyrical, kind of distorted, like oozing tones. Yeah, he's got quite a bit of range as a guitarist. Hear him just noodle, and we've got that really persistent drumming, of course, from our foreigner guy and Dennis Elliot, and this is basically kind of like a they basically become just kind of like a jazz quartet during this piece. It's like the bass organ, some like that soul jazz organ, yeah, and really rapid fire bass line. Okay, at this point, bass, drums, and guitar just piling on, playing like rapid fire as possible. Just. Yeah, that moment it's I don't know what to call it, kind of like a distress call from the drummer where he starts like pounding more. Like briskly, kind of like hammering down, as if to like indicate, okay, time to like work our way out of this. I called it, yeah, we were just about to get back to the song proper, and it came before I could even end.
Shadows fall, shadows fall over my dreams.
How well this band was marketed in the United States, but both these tracks sound like really big FM radio hits to me. Like that could have easily just held their own against what their stateside competitors were doing at the time. I don't want to keep mentioning those band names over and over again. The band comparisons can get kind of tiresome.
Dark night, echoes call day and night. When you are here with me, I know those shadows and echoes
Shadows and Echoes by If, and before that, Your City is Falling, two of the highlights from their phenomenal second album, If 2, released in December of 1970. Two albums in 1970. One of the really explosive English debuts of that year, in a year that was just jam-packed with explosive debuts. But If gets special kudos for releasing two albums that year, so just double the wallop, yeah. And a class with a few bands. There were a few bands. Let's see, King Crimson, Atomic Rooster, Free, and The Greatest Show on Earth, all released, and Cat Stevens all released two albums, and If released two albums in 1970, yeah. And Black Sabbath, yeah. Probably, and I'm sure a few others. Vandergraaf Generator, of course. Their first album is quite obviously influenced by the cover art by the second album by Chicago. I would think so anyway, because they both use the steel, depiction of the nameplate, yeah. And on in If's case, what they do is they take the steel of the first album and then just elevate it up into the clouds and have this one kind of like open door. It's a bit more surreal looking. And both albums are really good. This album, I think, has a slight advantage over the first, but they're both really good. And the third, their third is probably their If 3, I think, is the best overall. Yeah, from 1971. Yeah, but they've all got stuff to hear. And then the Morrissey Mullen stuff is also really good. Later on, more kind of in the smooth jazz vein. Yeah. Anyway, for more Rubies and Sapphires from the catalog of If, see the directory of albums by English artists linked in the description below. Like and subscribe, follow me on social media, share the video, and leave a comment if there are any observations you have about the two tracks we just heard, the lyrics, the vocals, the dynamics, the explosive instrumentation, the soloing, yeah, who had the best moment, the best lick, the best break, yeah. And until next time, this is Zaragon, the world's most air travel trimaximalist, signing off.